Hey there, friends. So you got yourself a new 3D printer, and what's the first thing that everybody wants to do, right? You're going to start printing things to upgrade your printer. And there's a lot of different varieties out there, and depending on the printer that you've got, it's really going to depend on what you need right off the bat. But from what I've experienced in the different communities, on Reddit, Facebook, and around the internet on YouTube and such, is most people are talking right away about printing some kind of purge option, or as it's elegantly called, a poop chute. And I thought I would share with you the experience that I've had, which is really straightforward. I'm going to go through 4 simple options, well, starting from the most simple up to the option that I find to be the best for my use. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each of those, and I think you're going to be surprised, especially by the one that I'm going to kind of talk about some of the downsides that I find most people are using. So let's get into it. Okay, so option number 1, you've got all this purge, these little poops coming out of your printer, whether it's just a single color or multicolor or whatever it is, but you've just set up your brand new machine, you've done your first print, and where's it going to go, It's just going to fall over the desk and it's going to make a big mess, but that's free, that's easy. And if you're just doing a single color print, you don't need to print anything. You don't have to spend any money, any resources, or put in any effort. But I'm telling you what, once you start getting into these kind of like multi-color, multi-day prints that have hundreds and hundreds of color changes. Now, obviously, if you have one of the newer printers that has multicolor, multi-tool head capacity, then you're not gonna have all this kind of mess. But I'm telling you what, if you want, and it works for your setup, you don't need to actually print or do anything. You can just let it spill out and be free. All right, so it definitely hurt my soul a little bit to throw all of that waste all over the counter, because I like to keep it neat and tidy, and I'm sure most of you do the same. My desk setup is pretty, it's pretty straightforward, it's pretty clean. But I think actually the favorite option that I started with and I stuck with for a long time was this complicated, fancy cardboard box. And I'll tell you what, this worked an absolute charm. And as you can see, I kind of cut it to have like a little backboard at the top. And this was just from a double spool box of filament that came in the mail. And I literally, boom, stick it behind the printer and it works. The purge comes out, it lands in the bin, and this can hold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of waste. It only has to be emptied every couple of days or weeks if you're doing multicolored prints. So, so I'm just trying to say, like, you don't have to spend a bunch of money, a bunch of time, a bunch of filament to make something fancy. And I'm going to show you next what most people end up printing. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons, but this one, it costs as much as buying the filament that you were already going to buy. 5 minutes of a little bit of scissor work here, and I used this for the first 2 months, and honestly I got no complaints. So it's not as aesthetic, and obviously I'd like to make my setup look good, but as far as function, this cardboard box, this is absolutely legitimate. All right, so let's get serious. And I am serious with the first 2 options, but what most people end up going with is something like this. It's a little like wraparound slide version. And I spent days, weeks, honestly, looking at dozens of different models, and this one was really highly recommended. I printed this in PETG or PETG so that it would not allow the PLA to stick to it. So basically it comes out the back of the printer, hits that little backboard, slides down this ramp. And I love that this was a modular printing system, or modular basket system. You can print one that's half as large, or I decided to print a rather large one that almost takes up like 3/4 of the length of the side of the printer here. And you'll notice there's this little circular bit. I'm not going to move my printer to reinstall this, because I'm going to tell you why in 1 second, why I really ended up hating this in about 5 days. It looks great. You set it up behind here, and then this piece connects. The waste comes down the little slide and it lands, supposedly in this bin. It comes down here, and it goes down. The problem is that all of the waste ends up staying on one side of this basket, and it doesn't actually transport itself down and fill it, fill it equally. So I started a print that had about 600 or 700 waste cycles, and I was just going to go to bed, let it cycle, and in the morning when I woke up, this entire chute was backed up into the printer, and it did not allow it to completely empty out. And the real problem is I ended up inside the printer with almost a big blob right on the tool head that was causing me, almost to cause some serious damage to the machine. So I ended up deciding to go back to the cardboard box until I could come up with or find a better solution, and I did. And I've been running now the final option, the final boss in my poop chute solution here for, let's see, it's July now. I set it up in about March. So it's been about four or 5 months or so, and I have not had a single issue, a single problem, and I can collect like several kilograms of waste without having to change it, clean up, or have any problems with clogging. I'll show you what that is. I think you're gonna really like it. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the back of the printer. And you can see here, this is kind of, let me move these cables. This is the beginning section of the final boss here for me. And basically it's attached directly to the back of the printer. There's a little screw there and there's a little screw at the bottom. And you can see how this circular opening has those little like notches on it. And I actually drilled a hole. Hello, filament down there. I drilled a big hole in the desk. There's one for cables. I've just relined it. I didn't put the grommet back. But this one here, as you can see, goes down under the desk. And I'll show you how that works. So there's the printer. It goes down the back. And then under, I've got this nice, big, huge box from Amazon filled. I mean, it takes forever to fill it up. And what do I use is basically this. Now, it's going to take a little bit for me to set it back up. But this is essentially like a little modular water slide kind of system. And I don't remember exactly which one was where. I'll have to spend a few minutes, but you can see here, it has like these little spikes, and then inside some of them have little like indentations. All right, so you basically take the pipe. Oh, you should put the ring on first. Put the ring on here. Then you got the ring on, you take your little notches, and then this ring, this is all made out of PETG as well. So obviously, if you're going to use something more complex like ABS or something like that, you go ahead and print it in the most complex material you want. But I'm pretty simple. I'm just printing like models, and that attaches on there, and that is super sturdy. And as you can see, it creates this sort of modular, customized setup. So I'm going to put it back together in a minute, but basically, this piece here connects to the back of the printer, and it runs down through that hole in my desk. And let's just say, obviously for many people, you don't want to print, you don't want to cut a hole in your desk, but let's say you have a gap. Maybe you've got a table or something like that, right? So you're going to be able to set up, to have it dump out behind and go down the table into a box, some kind of garbage can or collection vessel. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set this back up. It's a bit tedious and a little bit of effort, but once I have it set up, honestly, it sucked to take it down to make the video, but I really want you to see how there's levels to this, and depending on the outcome you're looking for, depends on the solution that you're going to use. And, if you're never doing multicolor prints, this really doesn't matter. You could just use any of the first 3 options and you'll be fine. But if you're going to have several hundred, purge cycles per print, you really want to have something that's not going to lead you into a blob of death on your tool head. Okay, so you can see how I've gone ahead and I've reconnected now the first segment, and it's very straightforward. Obviously, I have to put the clip back on this one, but even without it, it's holding. And then I'll bring you under the desk here. So you see how it comes out of there. And it's gonna, obviously, you could just let it kind of freestyle down, but there's this little kind of chute end piece that once I connect it, allows you to sort of direct the output, and it makes it nice and clean, nice and orderly, and everything lands perfectly in the box. All right, so now that I've shown you the different 3D printing poop chute solutions, let me know, what team are you on? Are you team cardboard box? Did you just dump it on the table? Do you think this complicated little chute is the answer? Are you into the kind of water slide setup? Obviously, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to know that you have options and you should do whatever you can to set up the way you like things to work so it stays clean and organized and you get the results you're looking for. So thank you so much for checking out the video. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.